Shocking revelations. What the Bible says about Iran's future at 3 a.m. Do not ignore this. The clock struck 3, and the darkness outside was thick, like an unwelcomed fog wrapping its cold fingers around the small town of Crestwood. Just when you thought you knew all there was to know, the world twisted again. Whispers emerged from decrepit churches and shadowy alleyways, their tips clinging to the edges of sanity. Something strange was bubbling beneath the surface, waiting to leap out and swallow the unsuspecting whole. What if the very scriptures that guided generations held chaos in their verses? The phone buzzed on the table, almost vibrating off its surface, like a warning shot in the stillness. Mark sat staring at it, his hands trembling. It was an article headline that gripped his attention: Biblical prophecies point to Iran's rise. His blood ran cold. Images flashed in his mind of burning streets, screaming crowds, and skies filled with gray smoke. But even more haunting was the thought of what the ancient texts foretold: a future intertwined with the fate of his own country. As he dove deeper, his heart raced. He could feel it tightening in his chest like a heavy weight on his soul. The Bible, it seemed, did not shy away from grim predictions. Symbols in Daniel and Ezekiel hinted towards an impending doom, yet shrouded with a curious glint of hope that twinkled like stars in an obsidian sky. Could this be nothing but a convoluted interpretation? Or was it the beginning of the end, the prophesied war that everyone feared? Each twist he unraveled sent shivers down his spine. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Hesitation gnawed at Mark, but he couldn't look away. Could this possibly be true? The murmur of thoughts crashed like waves in his mind. What were the implications? Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a chilling rush of wind flooded the room. His dog, Buddy, growled low, sensing something amiss. Mark instinctively shot a look towards the door, and at that moment, he wondered if the shadows were not mere darkness but something waiting, biding its time. What, or who, was out there, lurking in the muted silence at 3 a.m.? This sinister night was just the beginning. It was only a matter of time before everything changed. Mark's heart raced. The shadows loomed thick and heavy like a blanket of dread. His pulse thudded in his ears as he tried to convince himself that it was just the wind, old bones of the house creaking under the weight of night. But was it? Buddy's low growl intensified, vibrating with unease. Mark took a deep breath, tangy with fear. The headlines filled his mind, suffocating him. He could practically hear them echoing, layering dread over entire conversations. Biblical prophecies, he thought, his mind cycling back through the verses he skimmed. A rise, a fall, a reckoning. What did it all mean? Were they mere words or warnings etched in time, pulsing with prophecies yet to unfold? Shivering, Mark stood up, muscles tight, straining against the overwhelming urge to bolt out of the room. The air grew heavier, thickening like molasses. He forced himself to approach the door. Was something truly waiting for him just beyond the threshold? Buddy, stay, he whispered. The dog remained on alert, eyes dark as coal, clawing for any sign of danger. Mark gripped the doorknob, hesitating. An instinct of primal kind urged him to turn back. But the need to know overpowered him, compelling him forward into the clutches of fear. That he opened the door a crack, the hinges squealing in protest. The hallway stretched out before him, darkness swallowing everything whole. He stepped outside, every creak of the floorboards sounding like a gunshot in the silent night. Hello? His voice wavered in the stillness, swallowed by shadows. No answer, just the echo of his heartbeat drumming louder than the quiet. He peered out the window, and there it was, the faint glow of something flickering in the distance. Was it a fire? The hairs on the back of his neck tingled. Mark rushed to grab his phone, needing to see if he could capture this flash of light. Yet, as he turned to the window, his breath hitched in his throat. A figure lurked at the end of the street, still as a statue, but radiating an energy that felt absolutely wrong. Cloaked in darkness, It seemed almost otherworldly, its presence suffocating the atmosphere and freezing the warm summer air. "What the hell?" he muttered. He felt sweat bead at his temples, his instincts screaming for him to step back into the house. But curiosity lured him closer, dragging him out against his better judgment. His feet shadowed the faint light, spurred by some magnetic pull toward the figure. Mark moved carefully, shoulders hunched, pulse thrumming like a wild animal in his chest. Each step felt like an invitation to disaster. What was it waiting for? Did it know something about the prophecies he'd been reading? Was it connected to the chaos anticipated? The flicker danced again, and the figure slowly turned, revealing a face cast in shadows. An unsettling calmness washed over Mark, as if all the noise in the world melted. "Help me," the figure rasped, voice brittle as old paper. "You don't understand, it's already begun." Mark felt the icy grip of fear wrap around his heart as a rush of adrenaline surged through him. Who was this person? And what exactly had begun? Questions spiraled in his mind like a tornado. A storm aside from the haunting predictions he'd been reading, a deafening silence enveloped them. He fought through the lull. "What do you mean?" he whispered, heart hammering in his chest. The reply came as a chilling whisper. "The reckoning is coming, and you're part of it." Before he could react, the figure disappeared into thin air, leaving only a lingering coolness behind. Mark stumbled back, shaking. This night was no ordinary night. What had he gotten himself into? The warmth of the sun creeping over the horizon felt like an eternity away, but now, he couldn't escape the reality closing in. Was it all too late? He couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to shatter, and he was standing right at the edge. A new message buzzed on his phone, glowing ominously in the dark. He grabbed it, feeling drawn, preparing for another revelation. What more lay hidden in the shadows of this night? Mark's hands trembled as he unlocked his phone, the bright screen illuminating his face in the dark. The message flashed with urgency. "You must know the truth before it's too late. Meet me by the old church at dawn." His heart raced. What old church? He'd explored the few landmarks in town, but he hadn't come across any church. The idea of meeting whoever this was sent panic fluttering through his chest. Was this a trap? Or a lifeline? Buddy nudged him, sensing his distress. The dog's soft whine cut through the mounting anxiety, a grounding reminder of the loyalty that existed in the chaos. Mark crouched down, pulling Buddy close. "We'll figure this out together," he whispered. The streets outside were still shrouded in darkness, and the chill in the air crept under Mark's skin. He thought of the figure's words, "The reckoning is coming." What could that mean? Were there ties to those scriptures he had read? The hairs on the back of his neck bristled at the thought. He felt a rush of anger mingled with fear. If this was all connected, if his life was about to turn upside down, he had to be ready. They were leaving the house. It felt wrong to stay. Like a spell had been cast, forcing him to remember. He grabbed a flashlight and a jacket for Buddy, stepping outside with a newfound resolve. The street lay silent beneath a curtain of darkness. He took a deep breath and tried to focus, following the light of the dim street lamps toward the edge of town. As he sped through the shadows, images flooded his mind. The consistent whispers of the prophets, the rising tension in the news cycle, the unease wrapped in a quotidian visage, masking unspeakable turmoil. The destiny of so many felt teetered on the brink of chaos. What did he have to do with it? The town was almost empty, every door locked tight against the night, people steeped in their own conspiracies and fears. As he approached the direction hinted by the message, uncertainty gripped him again. He shouldn't be here. But then he remembered that as long as he had Buddy, he was not alone. At the corner of Pine and Maple, his eyes caught the ominous outline of the old church. It stood crumbling like an ancient sentry against the night sky, shadowy and forlorn. He hesitated, questions swirling in his mind. What awaited him inside its hallowed walls? Just then, he heard a rustle behind him. His spine went rigid. Spinning around, flashlight in hand, he felt a rush of dread course through him. Was it the figure come to haunt him again? Or was it something worse? "Who is there?" he called out, his voice edged with raw panic. Silence. The only sound was Buddy's low growl, echoing in the stillness. Then a soft whisper danced through the air, teasing his senses. "You shouldn't have come." Mark's breath caught. The voice was familiar, and yet it chilled him to the bone. as if the night itself sharpened around him, preparing him for the revelation about to unfold on this tumultuous road. His pulse quickened, realizing he might have just crossed a line he couldn't return from. Was this the reckoning? His heart hammered in his chest as he dared to step closer to the door. Would he be ready for whatever lay beyond? The air thickened with tension as he pushed the door open, awaiting whatever waited inside, trembling in anticipation and dread. What was waiting for him in the shadowy depths of the church? The heavy door creaked softly, and Mark stepped inside, the flashlight beam slicing through the darkness. Dust motes danced in the beam as if alive, swirling around him in an unsettling waltz. The air was thick with the smell of mildew, history woven into each wallpaper peeling from the damp walls. Buddy sniffed the ground, ears perked, alert. Mark held his breath, listening intently. The silence pressed in, thick and suffocating. He felt the weight of something ominous hanging in the air, like a storm ready to break. With every cautious footstep deeper into the church, he could almost hear the echoes of long-forgotten prayers hanging in the rafters. "Hello?" He called into the gloom, his own voice sounding small and fragile. "Is anyone here?" Nothing. Not a whisper, not even the rustle of leaves outside. Just the oppressive quiet that seemed to respond to his presence. His heart beat loud in his chest. He swept the flashlight to the left, illuminating rows of empty, rotting pews. A sudden noise, a soft scuffle from the back of the church, sent a jolt of adrenaline rushing through him. He swung the flashlight towards the sound, but nothing. Just shadows. "Show yourself," he demanded, voice trembling but firm. Then he saw her. A figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the church, wrapped in a hooded cloak that obscured her face. His breath hitched. She stood still, arms crossed. The moment stretched, time vibrating with tension, as Mark took a step forward. "Who are you?" he ventured, his voice cracking. "What do you want?" The figure lifted her head, and though the hood obscured her features, he could feel her gaze piercing through the fabric. "You seek the truth, Mark. But the truth is dangerous." The whisper curled around him, ghostly and enchanting. "What do you mean?" he asked, heart racing. "I need to know what's happening before it's too late." "The reckoning is coming." "Yes," she said, her voice dropping. "But to understand it, you must confront your past. The secrets buried beneath the weight of those who came before you, they will surface. And they will change everything." Mark clenched his fists, a rush of confusion and fear flooding his senses. "My past? What are you talking about? I don't understand." A flicker of movement caught his eye, and his attention snapped back. The figure began to walk towards him, slow yet deliberate, each step echoing in the cavernous space. "To survive, you must comprehend the patterns, Mark. You are not the only one being watched. Others will emerge from the shadows, too," she warned, her voice dropping dangerously low. "Those who control the narrative have plans of their own. You are but a pawn unless you decide to take action." Mark's mind reeled. "So what do I do? Tell me, what do you hold most dear?" she asked, her voice sharp yet haunting. "What would you sacrifice for the truth?" He felt a pang in his chest. Buddy whined softly beside him, picking up on his uncertainty. The stakes were higher than he realized. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside, shattering the tense moment, and the door banged against the wall. Mark's heart leaped. Shadows moved outside, figures closing in, the night alive with chaos. "Get out," the cloaked figure hissed, urgency lining her tone. "They are coming for you." Panic shot through him. "Wait, I need answers. No time. You must choose wisely." And then she vanished into the depths of the church, leaving him alone with the approaching danger closing in fast. That Mark's instincts kicked into high gear. He had to decide, fight or flee. He pressed his back against the wall, Buddy at his side, ready to face whatever came next. Was this truly the reckoning? Had their paths intertwined in a way he couldn't comprehend? As the door banged open, revealing dark figures pouring inside, Mark's heart raced. What awaited him now in the chaos that was about to unfold? The door slammed open, and the horde surged in. Mark barely had time to register anything before he was engulfed in shadows, figures moving like phantoms, their intentions masked by the chaos swirling around him. "Get back!" he shouted, brandishing the flashlight wildly, the beams skimming across their faces. Each glimpse fueled his fear, faces twisted, eyes glinting with something primal and fierce. There was no humanity in their expressions, only hunger, an insatiable thirst for something he couldn't quite grasp. Buddy growled low, instinctively protective, sensing the threat. Mark took a shaky breath, heart pounding like a drum. He glanced toward the back of the church, debating whether he could make it to the door before they closed in. A voice inside him screamed to run, but another whispered that he needed answers. What did she mean about the reckoning? Then faintly, through the chaos, he heard a soft melody lilting through the air, almost angelic against the dark backdrop. It pulled at him, tugging at his curiosity as much as his fear. It drifted from the direction where the cloaked figure had vanished. As he turned, the crowd parted slightly, as if granting him a momentary escape. The figures continued to swirl and surge, shouting at one another, but the melody whispered promises of wisdom, of clarity amidst turmoil. Mark felt himself moving toward it, compelled he couldn't resist. "Mark!" A voice broke through the noise. It was familiar, yet distant, like an echo. He turned sharply, eyes scanning frantically. "Who is there?" he called, desperation creeping into his tone. A ghostly figure emerged from the shadows at the periphery of the church. It was an old man, disheveled and gaunt, his pale skin nearly luminescent. "You must listen," he croaked, his voice raspy. "You're not safe here." "Where's the woman?" "The cloaked one?" Mark demanded, trying to push through the swarm of dark forms that now surrounded the space. Pressing in on all sides, the old man shook his head, urgency painting his features. "The truth you seek will only come through sacrifice. You lack the courage to discover it while standing in the face of danger." Marcus' mind raced. Sacrifice? What did that even mean? In the chaos, he felt anger rising, almost potent enough to drown out his fear. What kind of sacrifice? "Your security, your past, perhaps even your beloved," the old man warned, desperation seeping into his word. "You must find the heart of this place and confront what lurks in its shadows." With that, he stepped forward, pushing through the rushing throng of dark figures that suddenly turned their attention to him. Mark felt the weight of their stares, 1,000 pinpricks digging into his skin. They weren't just hungering for something. They were searching for him. "Get off him!" Buddy lunged, teeth bared as he barked fiercely at the nearest figure. "Run!" the old man shouted as he stumbled back, eyes wide with terror. Before it's too late, a shocking realization hit Mark. He wasn't simply fighting for his own survival. There was a darkness reaching for Buddy too. He had to act. He bolted down the center aisle, the flashlight illuminating the path ahead, desperate to uncover the source of the melody and the secrets it promised. Each step thundered in his chest while chaos erupted behind him. The pulsating glow at the end of the church seemed to beckon him, alive with possibility. What lay beyond that glow? Answers? Or further danger? As he approached, he felt a presence closing in, shadows creeping behind him, their whispers rising in crescendo. "Mark." They called his name, a sinister chant echoing in his mind. Charging forward, he reached out, fingers brushing against an ancient altar covered in dust. Was this what the cloaked figure wanted him to find? And then, without warning, he could hear her voice again through the chaos, urgent and close. "Choose what you value most. Mark, your answer lies in that choice." The room felt alive. His heart raced as he pondered what he truly valued. What would he sacrifice to unveil the truth? But before he could think further, the figures surged, hands outstretched, a cloud of darkness ready to envelop him. What choice would he make? And what would it ultimately cost him? The shadows surged, almost like a living entity, their whispers turning into a cacophony that filled his ears. Mark's pulse raced like a wild drumbeat, drowning out the melody that had drawn him in. The altar, ancient and silent, seemed to pulse beneath his touch, and he could feel its power thrumming in his bones, calling to him. "Mark." The voice, a mix of warning and pleading, came again, sharper this time, slicing through the chaos. He yanked his hand back, the heaviness of the air pinning him in place. The figures were closing in, their faces mere inches away now, grotesque and twisted, as though they had been carved from nightmares. Their eyes were hungry, searching him, and something deep within him trembled. Was it fear? Or something else, darker? Buddy. The dog was still at his side, teeth bared, muscles trembling as he stood his ground. But even Buddy could sense the tide turning. Mark looked back to the altar. The glow flickered, almost in response to his turmoil. Could this be his way out? Make your choice. The old man's words echoed in his mind, mixing with the haunting melodies. What was worth sacrificing? His safety? The truth felt within reach, yet he was terrified of what it could unveil. Suddenly, the crowd surged, pushing him towards the altar. Hands grasped at him, fleeting and desperate, while cries and chants crescendoed in a dissonance of chaos. The air thickened with their need, their desperation, and a shiver crept down Mark's spine. What do you value most? The words tugged at him like a lifeline. He thought of Sarah, her smile lighting up his darkest days, her laughter echoing against the void surrounding him. Would he give anything to protect her? Would he risk everything for the truth? Mark. The word pulsed in the air, louder now, echoing with a sense of urgency that sank deep into his gut. He let out a ragged breath and gripped the altar, bracing himself against the tide of shadows. I choose. He felt his heart nearly implode, his mind racing through the possibilities. What if the truth was more horrifying than he could comprehend? What if he triggered something that couldn't be undone? Hurry. The old man's voice broke through again, desperation shimmering in the flicker of his gaze. Sacrifice, Mark finally murmured, trembling, the weight of the decision settling heavily upon him. The pounding of his heart quickened as the figures edged closer, the walls narrowing as if the church itself conspired against him. The air thickened, and he swallowed hard. I sacrifice my safety for the truth. The words slipped from his lips, a prayer, a plea, a declaration all at once. The altar brightened, a blinding light exploding around him, engulfing the shadows that threatened to swallow him whole. The figures recoiled, hissing and retreating, their forms ghosting away, broken by the brilliance shining from the altar. And in that moment, he felt a profound change within him, a jolt of power coursing through his veins. Eyes wide, he stood resolute, caught between worlds. The haunting melody transformed into something vibrant, alive, hurtling him into a reality he had only whispered of in his dreams. But as the shadows dwindled, a new whisper reached his ears, serrated with anguish. You've chosen, but at what cost? Marcus' heart dropped. What had he truly unleashed upon himself, upon Buddy, and the world beyond the church? Before he could comprehend the weight of his choice, a figure emerged from the blinding light, a silhouette familiar, yet shadowed by mystery, one he had thought lost forever. Welcome back, Mark spoke with an eerie calm. Now, it's time to face your reckoning. What had he awakened? What terror lurked in the newfound light? Mark's mind spun as recognition crashed over him like a tidal wave. It was her Sarah, but not the Sarah he remembered, full of life and laughter. This Sarah had an ethereal glow surrounding her, like a spirit caught between realms. Her eyes held an ancient wisdom that sent chills down his spine. Sarah? He breathed, the name escaping his lips like a prayer. Is it really you? Her gaze pierced through the chaos, locking onto him with an intensity that made his heart ache. I'm not the only one who has returned. You've set in motion things you can't begin to understand. The shadows flickered, their malignant forms flaring back as if protesting her presence. Mark's stomach churned. He was pulled into a collision of emotions, relief and dread warring within him. He had sacrificed so much to find the truth, yet it was standing right before him, shrouded in layers of the unknown. Why did you come back? He asked, the weight of sorrow heavy in his voice. What do you want from me? The shadows screeched, a chorus of anguish, tightening their grip on the altar, as if something malevolent loomed just beyond reach. I'm here to warn you, she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. What you awakened cannot be contained. It hungers for your fear, your doubts. You will need to confront that which you've released. Her words sent shivers down his spine, as if the cold air wrapped around him like a serpent. But he growled, unnerved by the tension. Mark felt the gnawing unease bubble within him. What do you mean? What is out there? Before she could answer, the altar pulsed again, blinding them with another surge of light. A deeper shadow emerged from the air, a monstrous figure that loomed larger than life itself, its form shifting, a sickening blend of the familiar and the grotesque. As it came closer, Mark could feel the collective dread of the gathered crowd, the weight of so many souls bracing for the storm. Sarah stepped closer to him, shielding him from the encroaching darkness. You must remember who you are, Mark. You are more powerful than you think. The truth you seek isn't just about knowledge. It's about harnessing the strength within to fight. The choice you made has set a chain in motion that can't be undone. With those words, a rush of memories flooded through him, snippets of courage and fear intertwined. He had always been protective of Sarah, willing to fight for her and their shared dreams. But now, that dream felt distant, choked beneath layers of dark realities. Mark squared his shoulders, his heart pounding against the weight of doubt pressing in on him. "What do I have to do?" he asked, desperation lacing his voice. "You need to confront your fears and embrace your truth," she directed him, her tone firm but soft. "Only then can you reclaim what you have lost." But beware, her eyes darted back to the massive, shifting shadow, fear flickering across her face. "The cost will be great." A guttural roar erupted from the figure as it lunged forward, shattering the momentary calm. The crowd erupted in panic, their yells a chaotic symphony of terror. Mark felt the ground tremble beneath him, shaking the very foundations of his resolve. He grasped Buddy tight, throwing a glance at Sarah, who steeled herself against the predator lurking near. "Now," she commanded, "you have to focus. Remember what you're fighting for. The light will always be stronger than the dark." With a surge of determination, Mark called upon the power he'd felt earlier. He could feel the throbbing of the altar resonating within him, entwining with his heartbeat. Would he rise against the shadow, a lone flicker of hope in an encroaching night? As the darkness surged forward, Mark prepared to face the wrath of his own creation. But in that moment, a whisper brushed his mind like a forgotten dream. What if the truth lies not just in victory, but in understanding the darkness within? The question hung thick in the air as all eyes turned toward him, waiting to see if he would shatter the veil of fear, or if he would fall prey to the darkness he had unleashed. Would he find the strength to confront what lay ahead, or would he be consumed by the shadows of his own making? Mark's heart raced as the monstrous shadow lunged, its maw wide and menacing. He couldn't let it swallow him whole, not this time. The roar echoed, reverberating in the air like the crack of thunder, drowning out the screams around him. He was trapped between his past and the terror that loomed before him. "Fight!" Sarah's voice broke through the chaos, slicing through the panic that threatened to overwhelm his senses. She stood there, aglow with an otherworldly light, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of his memories, vulnerable yet fiery. Mark clenched his fists, suddenly feeling that familiar rush, the pulse of his heart sinking with the energy of the altar. He could feel it there, just beneath the surface, a force waiting to be unleashed. Beneath the fear, he felt something else rising, defiance. "Buddy," he called, the dog growling as if it could sense the impending clash. He turned his attention back to the shadow, and with a steady breath, he dug deep for confidence. He lifted his chin, no longer cowering from the encroaching darkness. "I am not afraid of you," he shouted, a thrust of adrenaline coursing through him. The shadow hesitated for a heartbeat, and Mark seized the moment. He focused fiercely on the memories that defined his bond with Sarah, the laughter, the dances in the rain, the promises made under twinkling stars. He poured that energy into a single thought. The light, he thought, would break through if he could summon it. The altar pulsed again, brighter this time, as if responding to his resolve. Mark felt the ground beneath him morph, solidifying into a path forged by his own strength. He stepped forward, taking control. "Together, Sarah, let us hold back the night." And with his words, he reached out towards her, anchoring them both in that powerful surge of light. As if understanding their united front, she stepped toward him, energy crackling between them. The monsters, those shadows of fear, seemed to recoil in the brightness. Their forms flickered like dying embers, retreating into the recesses of the altar, but it wasn't enough. The dark figure growled, regrouping, and with a surge, lunged again, this time not just at Mark, but at the entire crowd. "Everyone, get back," he shouted, instinctively guarding Sarah. The terror of those around him heightened. They scrambled, yet fear paralyzed many, holding them captive to the scene unfolding before them. "Mark," Sarah's voice wavered. "The altar, it's not just a source of power. It's a conduit. You have to guide it to extinguish the shadow. Channel everything into it." The realization hit like a lightning bolt. The altar was a mirror reflecting their energy, their fear, but it could also absorb their courage, if only they let it. He thought of Sarah, the bright future they once dreamed of. Let the light shine, Mark yelled, pushing every ounce of strength into his voice. He ran towards the altar, and with it, the tension shifted. The shadows grew darker, struggling to maintain their form against the tide of light he sent forth. But deep, down below, something clawed back at him. Was it the darkness within? The insidious whisper nagged at the edges of his mind. What if it was not just an external force, but a mirror of all he had hidden? As the monstrous shadow writhed, it sent out a tremor that rippled through the crowd like a pulse. Mark faltered for just a breath. "Don't lose focus," Sarah cried. Desperation nestled in her tone, pulling him from his spiraling thoughts. With a flick of his wrist, he redirected the energy, channeling memories of hope, love, and strength into the heart of the altar. Light burst forth, a brilliant expanse of white. There was no going back now. But as the light surged, crashing into the shadow, Mark's heart sank. Is this what it takes? He wondered. Or is the cost more than I bargained for? Just as he felt the altar responding, a chilling realization settled in. The shadows screamed, and within that symphony of anguish, a voice rang out, one he recognized and dreaded. Why not join us, Mark? The darkness swirled, revealing the face of someone he never thought he'd see again, hauntingly familiar, twisted in agony. Who are you? Mark gasped, a sickening dread curling in his stomach as the figures danced closer. The answer was almost too terrible to comprehend. Before he could grasp it, the shadows lunged again, and now he wasn't just battling for himself, but for the very essence of everything he once held dear. What lay behind the veil was more than just darkness. It held secrets that could alter everything. Would he embrace it or fight against the familiar faces within? The darkness twisted around Mark like a frigid wind, biting at his resolve. The face that lurked within the shadows was one he had long buried, a ghost from a painful past. It looked back at him with hollow eyes, dripping chaos and despair. Memories surged in waves, laughter turned to screams, love into loss. Look who's back from the dead, the shadow mocked, a sinister smirk stretching across its features. Mark's breath caught. It was his brother, Jake, the one he failed to save. No, this can't be, Mark yelled, disbelief flooding his mind. The ache of guilt tightened in his chest, suffocating him. You're not real. You're just a trick. Am I? Or am I the truth you refuse to face? Jake's voice dripped with malice. You think you can fight the darkness? You can't even fight the shadows in your heart. Join me. We can be whole again. Mark took a shaky step back. You're wrong. I have to fight for Sarah. For everyone. In the wayward light of the altar, Sarah's voice cut through the chaos, anchoring him. Mark, focus. You are not alone. He nodded, gathering memories that sparkled with hope. Their first kiss, the moment he promised to protect her, the reassuring looks they shared in moments of doubt. Those memories became weights, pulling him deeper into the light, battling against the suffocating darkness. I am not afraid, he shouted, the words fueled by adrenaline and pain. The altar pulsed again, resonating with Mark's growing determination. But Jake was relentless. You think you're stronger than me? I was always the one who protected you. You let me down, and now you're letting everyone else down too. Mark's heart raced, vulnerability creeping in. The voice tapped into his deepest fears, seeping into his mind like venom. You're just a coward. You can't save them. You'll lose everyone you love again. No, he roared, trembling against the onslaught of doubt. I won't let this happen. Suddenly, as if responding to his defiance, the shadows surged. A wave of darkness crashed against the tide of light, and the altar began to tremble. Fear rippled through the crowd, and gasps filled the air. Get back, Mark managed, shielding Sarah with his body as the light flickered. But the shadow pressed on, pushing against the fragile barrier of hope they were building. It was a powerful force, hungry and relentless, and it fed on fear. Every ounce of strength he had gathered felt precarious, like standing on the edge of a cliff. He thought of Sarah's trust in him, the hope in their eyes, the future they envisioned together. In that heart-stopping instant, the shadows shifted, morphing. Mark realized they weren't just blind creatures of fear. They were reflections of his own doubts, past failures shaped into terrible forms. Face the truth, Mark. Jake's shadow sneered, his grin widening. You can't escape what you are. With a surge of clarity, Mark understood he must confront Jake if he ever wanted to move forward. Clenching his fists, he shouted above the noise. I won't let you control me. I release you. You are not my past. You are not my future. With those words, the pulsating light flared brighter, pushing back against the darkness. But the light revealed something else more than just Jake's twisted visage. Within the shadows lay flickers of other faces, all profoundly familiar, each a representation of his regrets and fears. Memories flooded him, and just as he recognized them, the shadows lunged again. Mark, Sarah screamed, her voice piercing through the chaos. Don't give in. The moment stretched into an eternity, as Mark felt the shadows skittering closer, encircling him. What would he find at the center of this chaos? Would he confront these lingering pieces of himself, or succumb to the darkness within? Hold on, he shouted, but as the shadows surged forward, an overwhelming force gripped him. In a heartbeat, it became clear, to battle the darkness outside, he first had to confront the darkness inside. What awaited him in that confrontation? Would he find redemption, or succumb to despair? The shadows lunged, and with them, his deepest fears beckoned. Mark's breath came in desperate gasps as the shadows closed in, hungry for his attention. Each twisted face that emerged from the darkness pulled at him like a moving picture filled with guilt, faces he recognized, moments he wanted to forget. His brother, Jake, loomed larger than life, his features a gruesome mockery of their shared past. The memory of that fateful night, the chaos, the loss gripped Mark's heart like a vice. Face it, Mark, Jake hissed. You think you're strong enough to save anyone? You couldn't even save me. No, Mark shouted, grounding himself with thoughts of Sarah, with every joyous moment they'd shared. I won't let you manipulate me. He could feel the chorus of fear rippling around him, but he fought against it. Instead, he chose to focus on the flickers of light, the good memories, the laughter, the love. Suddenly, the shadows pulsed with malice, ready to shatter his resolve. Mark clasped Buddy's collar tightly, feeling the warmth of the dog anchoring him to the present. This is not me, he bellowed, pushing against the darkness, keen on swallowing him whole. I refuse to be defined by my regrets. The light from the altar surged as if responding to his defiance, illuminating the chaos, causing the shadows to screech and writhe in pain. They were draining, desperate, but he could feel the energy amplifying, weaving into a barrier around him. Mark, Sarah's soft voice broke through the din, radiating warmth amidst the chilling storm. You have the power to choose. Stand tall. Her figure, glowing behind the darkness, demanded his attention. Together, he yelled, summoning every ounce of energy from the memories he held dear, every dream he had feared losing, every promise made in the sunlight. They coalesced into a brilliant light, piercing through the veil of shadows and fears hungrily circling him. With a monumental effort, Mark took a step into that sacred space, embracing the feelings he'd buried for too long, the guilt, the sorrow, but also the brilliance of love and hope. He visually gathered them into an unyielding force within his heart. I choose to fight for love. I choose hope. The mighty pulse of the altar roared with him, a fountain of light erupting forth, washing over the encroaching darkness. As the light surged, shadows wrestled against it, shrieking as they melted back into obscurity. Faces twitched and shimmered, some faded while others screamed in anguish, their dark forms morphing finally into wisps of nothingness. Mark could feel Jake's mockery falter, replaced with shock. You can't let go, Mark, his brother echoed, the shadows around him dissipating. Mark surged forward, charging toward the altar, arms outstretched. I am not alone, he roared, and with that proclamation, the light exploded forth, surging like a tidal wave to consume the darkness. It surged through the church like sunlight breaking dawn after a long night, shattering shadows into non-existence. As the last echoes of Jake's visage faded, Mark felt a weight lift off him, like a long-held breath finally escaping from his lungs. The silence settled in, a palpable peace washing over the remnants of chaos. Buddy nestled closer, licking Mark's hand, grounding him back to reality. But as the sudden clarity emerged, he sensed a lingering presence. Sarah stood before him now, no longer shrouded in the shadows. The glow that clung to her was brighter, radiant, filled with a warmth that enveloped him in comfort. "I was so afraid," he breathed, staring into her eyes, his heart swelling with relief and love. "I thought I lost you." A soft smile crept onto her lips, the aura around her flickering softly. "You never lost me, Mark. But what you must understand, the reckoning is not over yet. It is a journey." Her gaze shifted beyond him, attention suddenly trained on the fading light, a distant rumble echoing in the wake of the storm. "What do you mean?" he asked, fear creeping back through the cracks of his newfound peace. "The truth we've witnessed here is only a small part of a greater story. The shadows will return. In time, they will always come back. But you have the power to stand against them, to harness the light." Her voice rang with certainty, reverberating deep within him. "It is your strength, your choices, and your sacrifices that will guide you." Mark nodded, absorbing her words as they transferred truth into courage. He felt the weight of reality shift inside him, igniting a fire he'd long suppressed. "I'll be ready," he promised, "for whatever comes next." As dawn broke outside, spilling through the church windows, light flooded the crumbling edifice, making each speck of dust dance like precious jewels in the air. The shadows lingered just outside, waiting like a distant storm, but Mark could feel it, the warmth of love, the pulse of unwavering strength, the knowledge that he would not face it alone. Taking Buddy's collar firmly in hand, he felt the bond with Sarah bubbling under the surface of his skin, an inexplicable connection that was both profound and resolute. Together they would step forward into whatever the world had in store, ready to embrace the unknown with fiery hearts. And as they pushed through the splintering doors of the church into the light of a new day, Mark finally understood the truth. Every reckoning offers a chance for redemption, and he would embrace it with all he had. If you've made it this far, you need to subscribe now. We have more mind-blowing stories coming your way that you don't want to miss. Smash that like button now to show the algorithm some love. Let us know in the comments how you felt about this emotional conclusion and what theories you have for what comes next. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means the world to us.